Black wealth starts with production. For too long, we've been consumers instead of creators. It's time to get back to building Black businesses, owning our industries, financial power, strong families, and strong communities. Get ready to listen to a powerful message from Dr. George Fraser as he speaks on freedmen Black Americans investing in the future and leave a lasting legacy.
I have two definitions for leadership. To be a leader is to be awake and alert and to be dissatisfied at all times. Oh yes, we have come a long way, but we have much further to go. Therefore, brothers and sisters, I am not happy. But I am motivated by a positive anger directed towards positive change. What do we know about change? We know that you will never change that which you tolerate, and you will only change when you get angry. Obviously, Black people are not quite angry enough. So we will continue to experience pain, death, and social injustice until we stop it, until we act, until we get angry. My second definition is that a leader defines reality and provides hope. A leader defines reality and provides hope. So I'm going to define reality as I see it, as a race man, as a Black man that has served our community for 40 years, that has crisscrossed the world, has been every place that Black people have been dispersed, South Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, West Africa, all over North Africa, all over South America, and all over the Caribbean. I'm going to define that reality for you. I believe that African Americans are at a pivotal point in history. The world is not waiting for us to wake up to our power. It is time for African Americans to take a seat at the table, not only in America, but also in the global economy. Unfortunately, we continue to place our power in the hands of those who have historically oppressed us, and even worse, we continue to oppress each other. Absolutely. This is the meaning of internalized oppression. To continue to fall into the cultural hypnosis of thinking that white America controls our lives is a true abdication of our personal power, and the reality is that each and every day is an opportunity for us to create a new and powerful story in our culture, and unless we find a way to write this new story and to claim our power, there will be devastating implications for our community and for the world. In other words, brothers and sisters, there is no one to save us but us. In case no one told you this, I'm telling you this. They told me. They thought I was white. So, you know, Dr. Fraser, I was at an all-white event. I'm sort of like, maybe God put me here as a spy, a double agent. We will not be saving Black people. No. In fact, white folks are not even thinking about Black people. Do you know who white folks are thinking about? They're thinking about white folks. They're thinking about their children, their wives, their husbands, their communities, their businesses, their educational system. They're not thinking about you. I had a good white friend who said to me not long ago, he said, George, I know the problem with Black people. I said, oh, really? Really, Bob? What might that be? He said, you spend all your time thinking about us, and we don't spend any of our time thinking about you. Therefore, if you're not thinking about you, and we damn sure ain't thinking about you, who's thinking about you? Well, I had to do a Holy Ghost dance. I had Sometimes I feel that we are searching for a key to an unlocked door. that the door to opportunity in this great country, this great racist, white supremacist country, and it's racist and white supremacy, there's no question about that, it's in the DNA. You will not live to see that change. You will not fix that. There will have to be generations of white people that will simply have to die. Really, that's what's going to happen. You're not going to fix it. You cannot train that out of white people. They will have to die. So we have our work to do, because there is more opportunity than we have the capacity to take advantage of. We just have to, as Dr. Watkins says, we just have to begin to think that way. The great Dr. Francis Cress Welsing left us with this, and I quote, "We wonder why we cannot, and we wonder why we're not making progress. We wonder why we're not making progress." This is Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. And then she went on to say, "I can't call myself a bitch, a hoe, a nigger, a gangster, and a thug every day and then get up and do something constructive. That's impossible."
Right.
The great rapper Kendrick Lamar said it a little bit differently. And I quote, "How can you fight for love on behalf of your people when you can barely find a reason to love yourself?" Kendrick Lamar. Drake said it a little bit differently. I happen to like Drake. I like the way he put this. I like the way he spit this out. And he said, started from the bottom, now I'm here. Started from the bottom, now I'm here. Absolutely, I can relate to that. Born in Brooklyn, New York, in Bed-Stuy. We have lost our consciousness. We must get our consciousness back. The fight for social justice is never ending. We will not achieve it in our lifetime. And as I said earlier, many more will die before this occurs. But that's how it's always been. In studying our people, I have noticed that it takes us about 100 years to achieve the things that we want to achieve. Our fight for freedom. Isn't it interesting that we achieved our freedom without guns or money? And it took us 250 years, but we achieved our freedom. That's how awesome black people are. We freed ourselves without guns or money. Why do you think we were able to do that? We were right, and they were wrong. And whenever you're operating out of goodness and righteousness, you will always win. We achieved our civil rights, voting rights, and public access from 1864 to 1964. It took 100 years, but we achieved it. And we did it without guns or money. Why were we able to do that? Because we were right. How do I know that we will achieve social justice? How do I know that we will close the income and wealth gap over time? I know because we are right and they are wrong.
Black power.
That's how I know. But we must chart a good and righteous course, and we must stay that course. And we must now understand that we must focus on wealth. We must focus on economic development and wealth creation. There are many ways to get there. We must answer the question that so many of us ask each and every day, but we don't have an answer. Why is wealth important? Not so that we buy more stuff. We don't need any more stuff. That's our problem. We have too much stuff. We are a consumption class of people. Jews are a merchant class. So we must shift our thinking from consumption class, because that's all we do, to a merchant class. We'll put a pin in that. I'll pick up on that in a moment. Why is wealth important? We are the only culture in the history of humankind that put political empowerment before economic empowerment. Last year we elected over 9,000 black public officials, and we're still at the bottom of the educational and economic heap. What does that mean? You cannot do it by politics alone. How dare you put that kind of pressure on our political leadership? But again, we're no fools. We were born at night, but not last night. We didn't come down here with the last drop of rain. We know that we're all impacted by public policy, and yes, we're all impacted by the politics of inclusion. And yes, we must continue to use the power of our vote to empower those who empower us. If they're not empowering us, if we are not a plank on their platform as it relates to economics and the upliftment of our people and communities, then don't vote for them. That's right. That's on you. Why is wealth important? Your wealth will determine where you live. Where you live will determine where your children go to school. Where your children go to school will determine the quality of your children's higher education, and the quality of your children's higher education will determine their lifelong earnings. And your children's lifelong earnings will determine where your children live. And where your children live will determine where your grandchildren go to school. And where your grandchildren go to school will determine the quality of your grandchildren's higher education, and that will determine their life. Do you see the cycle of poverty here? Why is wealth important? Dr. Boyce spoke so eloquently, so fabulously, so granularly of this. That in a market-based economy, in a democratic capitalistic society, in case no one has told you, the only color that really matters is green. So until our pile of green is as big and as high and as deep and as wide and as leveraged as any other cultural group's pile of green, we will never be considered an equal at the table of democratic capitalism. Why is wealth important? Because when we finish pontificating ad nauseum about our issues, somebody's got to write a check.
Right.
Our Jewish brothers and sisters can write a check. Our Asian brothers and sisters can write a check. Our Arab brothers and sisters can write a check. I've been to Dubai lately, and they can write some serious checks. Stupid money. They got stupid money. We can't write a check. Let me say that differently. We cannot even convene our people unless somebody else writes the check. Ask the NAACP. Ask the Congressional Black Caucus, which I've spoken at for 41 years straight. Ask the Urban League. If somebody else wasn't writing the check, we couldn't even meet. We must fix this in the 21st century. So I'm going to tell you a secret that no CPA will tell you. The tax system was set up for the landowner and the business owner. The landowner and the business owner. So if we don't own land, and we own the fewest number of homes per capita of any cultural group in this country, and we came over here on the Mayflower. And we don't own businesses, and we own the fewest number of businesses per capita of any cultural group in this country. And again, we came over here on the Mayflower. You cannot fully exploit the American tax system. The American tax system will exploit you. So one of the reasons Mitt Romney back in the day, when he was running against Obama, did not want you to see his tax returns. Why? Not because he did anything illegal. It's because he's a big-time landowner, big-time business owner, and he used the benefits of that land ownership and business owner to pay a micro percentage of tax, far less tax on a percentage basis than you and I will ever pay. America is about equity and ownership, and the idea that the black community can exercise effective power, and I think you said this, boys, political or otherwise, without simultaneously exercising economic power is a fantasy, that capitalism without capital is just ism.
That's right.
So the question becomes for us, or the statement, there can be no collective will and vision without a strong sense of identity. And there can be no strong sense of identity without a unifying purpose. So the question then is, what are we unified around? What is the next big thing? What is the third and final moral imperative and moral assignment? The first two, freedom. The second was civil rights, voting rights, and public access. The third, as far as I'm concerned, is economic development, wealth creation, closing of the income and wealth gap. So, because when we look at the world today, we will see that powerful nations and powerful people are producing people and not just consuming people. And as I've often said in my many speeches around the country, you cannot consume yourself into equality, and you cannot consume yourself into power. And those people who depend upon consumption will see as they consume the products of others and do not produce for themselves will ultimately be consumed by others. Therefore, in the 21st century, the goal for us as a community must be to become a community of owners and savers instead of a community of consumers and renters.
During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Black Americans built thriving economic institutions, including banks, insurance companies, and commercial hubs such as Tulsa's Black Wall Street, Durham's Haiti District, and Richmond's Jackson Ward. These self-sufficient Black economies provided jobs, generational wealth, and a sense of communal pride. However, integration led to the decline of Black-owned businesses as freedmen Black Americans sought acceptance in white-owned establishments. With newfound access to previously segregated spaces, many Black consumers abandoned Black businesses, leading to widespread closures. Meanwhile, Black entrepreneurs faced discrimination in securing loans and maintaining businesses in the face of economic integration, which ultimately favored white and non-Black businesses. Today, non-Black immigrant communities, including Arabs, Asians, and Hispanics, have capitalized on this economic shift, establishing businesses in historically Black neighborhoods. Instead of reinvesting in their own community, freedmen Black Americans spend a disproportionate amount of money in businesses owned by these groups, further eroding Black economic self-sufficiency. Prior to integration, Black Americans fostered a strong sense of unity rooted in shared experiences, struggles, and aspirations. Black communities developed their own educational institutions, religious organizations, and social structures that upheld cultural pride and resilience. Integration, however, weakened these bonds as freedmen Black Americans were encouraged to assimilate into mainstream society. This shift led to the gradual loss of traditional values, practices, and the prioritization of Black interests. As new immigrant groups entered the economic and political landscape, freedmen Black Americans found themselves competing for resources and representation rather than standing united. The prioritization of multiculturalism over Black self-determination further diluted Black political power and economic influence. The arrival of new immigrant groups has had a profound impact on freedmen Black Americans' economic prospects. Many immigrants have been able to access government and private resources that were originally fought for by Black civil rights leaders. Programs intended to benefit the descendants of enslaved Black Americans have often been extended to all minority groups, diluting the intended impact on freedmen communities. Additionally, immigrant business owners often do not hire Black employees, further restricting economic opportunities. Many of these businesses extract wealth from Black neighborhoods without reinvesting in the community, leading to further economic stagnation. The competitive labor market has also seen Black Americans losing jobs to lower-wage immigrant workers, exacerbating economic struggles and unemployment rates within Black communities. They downplay Jim Crow as a temporary setback rather than a systemic effort to maintain racial hierarchy. The truth is, America was not built on freedom. It was built on conquest and white supremacy, a reality it has never fully abandoned. This is why there is such a desperate push to erase or distort history. When people learn the full truth, they begin to see patterns that expose how injustice has evolved rather than disappeared. The backlash against so-called critical race theory is not about education. It is about control. From book bans to rewriting school curricula, efforts to suppress history are designed to keep people uninformed and unquestioning. White supremacy is ingrained in American institutions: home, school, religion, and politics. And those who fear history reveal their own guilt. They know that an honest telling of America's past would destroy the illusion of innocence. It happened when the world saw Black Wall Street burn. It happened when the brutality of Jim Crow was exposed. It happened when the Southern strategy was unmasked as a tool of racial control rather than democracy. The systems of oppression never disappeared. They evolved. Slave patrols became modern policing. Redlining became housing discrimination. The plantation became the prison. And through it all, America has attempted to erase its crimes. Native lands were stolen through laws. Black freedmen Americans were denied land and wealth-building opportunities. Immigration policies were designed to maintain a white majority. When Black communities thrived, they were targeted by mobs, by bombings, and by policies disguised as justice. It was not enough to take lives. They had to erase entire communities. Highways were built through Black neighborhoods. COINTELPRO was used to assassinate Black leaders. Confederate statues were erected not in 1865, but during the Civil Rights Movement as a message of intimidation. And still, they expect us to believe in their version of America, one where slavery was just an unfortunate chapter, where the Tuskegee experiment is a footnote, where mass incarceration is an accident. But the truth cannot be erased. The real fear is not history itself. It is the reckoning that comes when people realize they have been lied to. A generation that understands the depth of deception will not trust blindly. And when trust is broken, people begin to question everything. That is what America fears most. Not its past, but the consequences of its lies. And no matter how many books they ban, how many voices they silence, how many distortions they spread, the truth remains. It spreads like fire, igniting minds and demanding accountability. The real question is not whether America will face its past. The question is whether America can survive what it has done. The fight to suppress history is not just about the past, it's about controlling the future. Look at the policies still in place today. Voter suppression laws disproportionately target Black communities, just as literacy tests and poll taxes once did. The school-to-prison pipeline funnels Black children into a system designed to break them before they can build. Discriminatory banking practices, like higher interest rates for Black borrowers, continue the legacy of redlining. These aren't relics of history. They are present-day realities. And when we fight back, they criminalize us. The same government that calls Martin Luther King Jr. a national hero today labeled him the most dangerous man in America when he was alive. The same system that praises the civil rights movement now has laws banning protests that challenge police violence. The same corporations that post Black History Month ads are the ones funding politicians who strip Black voting rights. They want us to forget. They want us to believe that history is behind us. But it isn't. Because the forces that upheld slavery, segregation, and racial violence are still at work, just under different names. The past is not dead. It is still shaping the present. And until we confront that truth, history will continue to repeat. The solution to these systemic issues lies in a conscious effort to rebuild Black economic independence, cultural unity, and family structure. Key strategies include: Black Americans must prioritize supporting Black-owned businesses, spending within their own community, creating a sustainable economic cycle similar to those in other racial and ethnic groups. Initiatives such as group economics, Cooperative economics and Black business directories can help redirect resources back into Black communities. Freedmen, Black Americans have to get back to strengthening Black families. The Black family unit has historically been a source of strength and resilience. Rebuilding strong familial structures through mentorship, education, and economic support can provide a foundation for generational wealth and stability. Also, teaching future generations on the importance of cultural identity, such as promoting Black history, traditions, and self-determination through community-based institutions, media, and social movements will help reinforce a sense of identity and pride. Last but not least, political and economic advocacy is a must. Freedmen, Black Americans must advocate for policies that specifically benefit their community, rather than broadly applied initiatives that dilute their impact. This includes pushing for reparations, land ownership, and economic incentives tailored to descendants of enslaved Black Americans. So yeah, integration was intended to supposedly provide Black Americans with equal opportunities, but in many ways, it disrupted the economic and cultural self-sufficiency of freedmen, Black Americans. By prioritizing Black economic empowerment, cultural identity, and family unity, freedmen Black Americans can reclaim their lost progress and build a future of collective prosperity. The time has come to reinvest in our own communities and redefine success on our own terms. The civil rights movement is often hailed as a victory, a moment in history where America finally made good on its promises of equality. But for freedmen, descendants of enslaved Black Americans, it was anything but a victory. In many ways, the movement left us worse off, thanks to a combination of leadership betrayals, failed policies, and deceptive labels that diluted our struggle. One of the biggest failures of the movement was the emergence of Black leaders who prioritized their own political and financial gain over the needs of the freedmen community. Many of these so-called leaders compromised with white institutions in exchange for personal access to wealth and political influence. They embraced superficial integration while ignoring the long-term economic and social impact on Black communities. Rather than pushing for reparations, land ownership, and economic self-sufficiency, they settled for token positions in white-dominated spaces, leaving the masses behind. Affirmative action was another policy that was supposed to uplift Black Americans, but in practice, it disproportionately benefited white women and non-Black immigrants. Instead of addressing the specific injustices faced by freedmen, these policies became a catch-all for any marginalized group, diluting the intended impact. White women became the largest beneficiaries, securing jobs and educational opportunities that should have gone to freedmen. Meanwhile, Black immigrants, who had not suffered from American slavery and segregation, were lumped into the same category as freedmen, further pushing us to the margins. Perhaps the most damaging consequence of the civil rights movement was the introduction of minority and multicultural labels. These terms blurred the lines between the unique struggle of freedmen and the experiences of other racial and ethnic groups. Policies that were meant to address the oppression of freedmen were opened up to anyone who wasn't white, turning the fight for Black justice into a general diversity initiative. Corporations, universities, and the government all embraced diversity as a way to appear progressive while avoiding direct investments in the freedmen community. The fight for reparations was diluted into broader social justice causes that often left Black Americans without targeted benefits. The result? Our unemployment rates remain high, our wealth gap has barely improved, and the systemic barriers that were supposed to be dismantled still stand firm. One of the most urgent needs in the Black community today is the presence of strong legal minds who can fight for true justice. We need more attorneys and strategists like Thurgood Marshall and Johnny Cochran, visionaries who understood that real power comes from mastering the legal system and using it to advance the interests of freedmen. We must establish think tanks that bring together legal experts, economists, and policy strategists to create a unified agenda for economic and legal justice. These groups must push for reparations, fair housing policies, and legal protections against discrimination that specifically target the issues facing freedmen. Without a dedicated legal and economic strategy, we will continue to see our demands ignored and our communities left behind. The battle is not just in the streets. It must be fought in the courts, in boardrooms, and in legislative chambers where real change is made. If we are to correct the failures of the civil rights movement, we must first acknowledge them. We must push back against the leaders who sell us out for personal gain. We must rebuild Black economic power by supporting our own businesses and institutions. Most importantly, we must reject blanket policies that treat all minorities the same and demand reparations and policies specifically for freedmen Black Americans. The time for symbolic victories is over. It's time for real, tangible justice. Tell me what you think about this topic. Hope you find the information in this video informative. Feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. Thanks for watching.